Hello, and welcome to the UTK Pre-College Programs session. My name is Jason Moody, and I work at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I'm here in sunny Knoxville today. It's very hot. And I am the administrative specialist with the pre-college programs. We're under the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at UT. And I will let Susan Troop introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here with you today to talk about these wonderful programs that we have to offer to you and your students. I am Susan Troop, and I'm the Assistant Director of Pre-College STEM Programs at the University of Tennessee in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. Take it away, Jason.
Thanks, Susan. All right, so I'll be talking about all the programs today that we offer. They're all geared towards middle school and high school students. They are, for the most part, they're for students across the whole state, but there is one that's more regional. So if you're listening in, and if you don't mind, kind of put your location, maybe the city that you're in Tennessee, in the chat, that'd be great for us to just kind of see who all we have here. And then maybe also put, are you middle school educator, high school educator, or something else? That'd be great. So feel free to do that, and I'll get started. We will move on to the next slide. Here we go. All right, I'm going to jump right in to pre-college research. Why is it important? There's a lot of different reasons. College readiness, being able to be prepared for the college level when it comes to whether it be making posters or doing the scientific process, writing formal papers. That's a big part of a couple of the programs we do. Public speaking, that's another thing that you get a lot of experience with some of these programs that we host at UT, that you may not otherwise get that experience in high school, and then you may be thrown into that in college and just not quite be ready, but these help prepare you for that. Critical thinking and team building, those are two things that it takes to do many of these programs. And problem solving too. Graphic design, we've really delved into a lot recently, as you'll see, because a lot of these programs have moved online over the past year and a half or so. So that's become a really big part of these. And one of the biggest ones, time management. There's deadlines, there's things you have to meet to make sure you're getting your application in on time, or meeting those deadlines to enter the science fair, whatever it may be. That's a big part of learning to be prepared for college. Okay, so the programs that we host that I'm going to be talking about today, there's four, kind of like a 5-2, like a 4B, if you'll call it that. The first one you'll see on the top left, that's the Southern Appalachian Science and Engineering Fair. And a program that's sort of an offshoot of that is called the Virtual Science Club. The Virtual Science Club is something that was created last fall to kind of cater to everyone being virtual at the time. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. The Junior Science and Humanities Symposium is on the top right, that logo there. And then on the bottom left is the Tennessee Science Olympiad. And then finally, bottom right, the Governor's School for Sciences and Engineering. We host that at UT Knoxville. All right, and again, before I move on, if you have any questions or anything you want to mention in the chat, feel free to do that. We'll address those as we go. I'm seeing quite a few messages in here.
Yes, we have a lot of middle school representation, high school, gifted, so we have a really nice variety of attendees who should really benefit.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
But okay. I'll be watching the chat in case there are any questions.
All right, thanks, Susan. And feel free to chime in with anything that I may have missed or you want to add. Okay, the Southern Appalachian Science and Engineering Fair, I will call that SASEF from now on. It's our short term for that. It's the premier science and engineering fair for East Tennessee. So this is the first event we'll talk about and the only one we'll talk about that's a regional event. The rest are good for any student across the state to enter. But if you're in East Tennessee, there's a 23 county region, and you'll see a map here in a second to see kind of where that region is. It was hosted virtually in both 2020 and 2021. And the next event is going to be in late March 2022, hopefully in person. We expect it to be in person by then. And to enter the fair, typically the deadline to enter is late February. So you can expect that to be roughly similar coming up next spring semester. Okay, so SASEF, like I said, it's East Tennessee. You can see a map up there with each of the counties that have participated over the last 2 years. And we've had 13 counties across East Tennessee participate. We'd love to make that 23. So if you're from one of those 10 counties that's not circled, we'd love to have you in 2022. There's usually in person, we can have anywhere from about 175 to 225 students. The last couple of years, we've had a little bit smaller group because it's been virtual. About 60 or 70 students have participated. So roughly 35 total schools have participated across East Tennessee over the last couple of years. And then if you look at divisions there is a junior division, and that means middle school. And there's a senior division, which is high school. So about 2/3 of our participants are middle school students, and then the other third is high school. And as far as gender goes, for the most part, it's going to be about 60% female and 40% male is what it's been over the last couple of years. So really good participation from females. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about the timeline and how this works and how you can get involved. So starting in August to September, so when you're kind of getting back into school, that's the time where students will select their research topic and begin reading about it. So go to the library, find resources online, and start figuring out, what are they going to do? What's the question they're going to ask, and how are they going to test that? And then in October, start putting that down onto paper and getting started with paperwork for the fair itself. Also in October, and I'll touch more on this later, we have a teacher grant that SASEF, which is a nonprofit organization, they actually provide a teacher grant, but I'll move on to that later. November and December, that's when you want to be targeting getting that experiment done itself. So actually carrying out what your experiment is and analyzing data, writing your report, your abstract, and all that. And during that time, you'll notice that SASEF registration will open up so you can start registering your students for the fair. All right, okay, January. So in January, that's typically our deadline to make sure that if you have a project that involves something such as human subjects or animals, maybe a dangerous, something that can light on fire, something that's dangerous or involves people or animals, you do have to get that pre-approved because to advance on to the international fair, we need to make sure we're complying with their rules. And I'll talk about the international fair a little bit later. So in February, a lot of times schools are hosting their own school-based fairs, and many of them will send a few of their competitors to SASEF. Just keep in mind that if your fair ends after the deadline, which is usually late February, you'll want to make sure that that student enters the next year's fair. And if you've participated in this in the past, the last 2 years, we've actually used an online system now, which is pretty new to many of the teachers and the students. So you do register online and you enter all your paperwork there online. All right, March and April, students and teachers are informed about their acceptance into SASEF. For the most part, if you filled out your paperwork properly, you're going to be able to attend. And the students will then begin preparing their poster or their presentation and practicing for their judge interviews. So in an in-person fair, what we've done in the past is the event's been in Thompson Bowling Arena. So on the floor there, so if you ever have been for a basketball game, it's not a basketball floor, it's just like a regular concrete floor, and we spread out tables all across the floor. And on the bottom right, that photo, you can see a student there standing by their poster. So that's kind of that in-person version that we're hopefully getting back to in 2022. And up above the top right photo, you'll see that's more of our virtual fair where a student was sharing at home to judges on Zoom. So that's something we may potentially still offer in the future for students that cannot travel and be in the fair in person. But for the most part, expect us to transition back to that in-person on the floor in the arena or some other place at UT in-person event. And yeah, like I said, late March 2022 is what you can expect. We haven't set dates yet, but we'll be announcing that pretty soon. And then in May, the International Science and Engineering Fair, ISEF is what it's called, is held usually the middle of that month. And several students from SACEF will actually qualify and attend ISEF. It can be, I've seen it everywhere from Anaheim to, I think this year it might be in Atlanta. I may have that wrong, but it's all over the country. Here in the US is where it's typically held. So your students, if they're looking for a category, there's really anything and everything that you would need. So any sort of question that's STEM related whatsoever, there's a category for that. This is just a little look again at what we've done in the past, virtual versus in person. Again, in person, they're going to be standing in front of judges that are walking around and asking questions, whereas virtual, the judges met them in some sort of virtual room to ask questions. And those interviews, the virtual interviews took like 10 to 12 minutes or so. The in-person situation, it's a little different. It's more, it's less formal. Judges kind of wander around and go check out the projects in their categories. All right, so awards. There are a ton of awards you can win at SACEF. There's all kinds of stuff. The grand prize really though is the top 2 senior divisions, so high schoolers win an all expense paid trip to ISEF. And again, wherever that is, they'll get that travel paid for. The overall winners, so we have our top 5 senior division, they'll win scholarships up to $1,000. And those are cash prizes. And for junior, it's the same thing, but up to $200. And really in the last 2 years, we've had a little bit less of an expense for renting physical spaces. So they've actually won more than that, which has been great. In each in each category, so all those 17 different categories, there's a winner for those categories. So each of those winners would receive $50 as well. And then lastly, there are local companies and national companies too that actually award special awards that may be based on the industry they're in, and they'll typically give out some sort of cash prize for that as well. So as you can see, if you got a good project, you really will start to rack up some of those scholarships and cash prizes. And teacher grants. I just want to mention this because each year SACEF does offer a chance for teachers to apply. The deadline and the request hasn't been put out yet, but if you're interested, certainly stay in touch with us. It can be up to about $1,000 awarded to teachers for materials, whether that be something for your chemistry lab, or maybe you need software, or who knows what it is. Really, it's up to you what you want to use that money for. But we do offer that grant each and every year, and usually the deadline is going to be around the end of October.
Jason, if our participants want more information or to sign up for our newsletter, how would they go about that?
Yeah, so to sign up for the newsletter, well, first off, just visit, it's called prep.utk.edu, and I'm trying to put that in the chat myself, but I'm having trouble. So yeah, prep.utk.edu. And there is I think it's on the right side of the screen, you'll see a place to sign up for the newsletter. And we do communicate deadlines and opportunities that come up, usually monthly is what we do. And that's really a good spot to answer any other questions. Is there anything else, Susan, so far?
Nope, that was it so far.
Okay, so that's event 1. We'll call this one 1B because the Virtual Science Club is kind of an offshoot from SACEF. So in the fall, the idea came up with the SACEF board and then us here at UT, and we partnered together to host a virtual science club. And it's not running right now, but we are anticipating we'll start it again once the 2021-22 school year begins. But last year, what we did is we met twice every month. It was, I think, the first and third Tuesday of each month at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And we did it on Zoom, and we had guest speakers for some of the events. So we had UT faculty. We had a local STEM professional who actually is in the STEM field now, but won the SACEF Fair many years back. He was able to talk to the students. And then on other days, we would have breakout sessions where we'd split students into kind of what their research areas are. And we brought in UT grad students that were able to help them with their projects in the fall so that they were ready to submit them for SACEF in the spring. So we anticipate doing that again, even though I know we'll be a little more in person by then. We still are looking to do a virtual science club to put our middle and high school students in touch with people that can help them and resources that can help them. I mean, one story I had is we ended up getting in touch with a faculty person at UT who was able to help one of our students get a material they needed for their project they wouldn't have otherwise had access to. So that's a good connection we were able to help out the students with. And that is that you can find once you go to that prep.utk.edu website. There's a tab on the left that has each of these events, and it'll take you to the SACEF page. And on the SACEF page itself, you'll see a virtual science club information tab. All right, this is we're moving on to event number 2 now in program 2 that we do, the Tennessee Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. This is for high school students only, so grades 9 through 12 with the entire state of Tennessee. So not just East Tennessee, this is everyone across the state. This is a grant-funded program. You can see the logos at the bottom by the tri-services in the military, so Army, Navy, and Air Force. And what it is it's kind of a public forum for students to present their research, either via an oral presentation, as you can see in the photo there, a student behind a podium speaking to a crowd, or a poster presentation, which is a little more similar to SACEF, which we just talked about. In 2020, we held this in person, barely, like a week or two before everything shut down. And then in 2021, we held it virtually. And then looking ahead to March of 2022, this event will likely be early March. So about the first weekend in March is when it's usually held.
Jason, we had a question about the virtual science club. Is that just for the East Tennessee region?
It was kind of designed for that, yes. But we're not going to turn anyone away. I mean, if they're interested in coming, that's fine. Just know that a lot of times we do talk about the SACEF fair, and if you're not from those 23 counties, you wouldn't be able to enter that fair. But the rest of Tennessee also has regional science fairs as well that you could get involved in. Okay, structure of the symposium, back to event number 2, the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. So high school students, again, from across the whole state, submit their original research papers, and that's usually a deadline in January to do that. And then up to the top 14 participate in the oral competition. So the top 14 projects will advance the oral competition, and then the next best 16 are entered into the poster presentation. So you can see in the photo there, the top right that's 2020. You can see the judging panel. That's actually during the Q&A process. So the judges are asking that student questions about their research. And then on the bottom right, you'll see the poster presentation, and that's kind of how that one works, where you, similar to SACEF, you stand and the judges make their way around the room and question students. And keep in mind, these two programs kind of go hand in hand. If you enter SACEF, you should probably enter the symposium, or vice versa too. It's easy to enter the same project into those two events. So the oral presentation takes about 12 minutes, and then a 6-minute Q&A period. So a little under 20 minutes total is how much time students have to present. And when it is in person and things are back open, hopefully like normal, we do take students in between sessions to UTK labs, or sometimes we've actually taken them to ORNL out in Oak Ridge here in East Tennessee. But there are other events that we kind of mix in with the competition itself. And important to know, this is a grant-funded program, so the students and teachers, the meals and lodging is covered if you do get accepted into this competition. So you don't pay for your hotel stay or for food while you're here. Again, project categories, there's several different categories you can enter in the symposium. You can read through those there, but I also wanted to point out, here's top right, there's some food that's included, and the bottom right that's a lab tour we took. I think that was a biology lab in 2020 that we took the students to at the University of Tennessee. Okay, awards. So each student that enters the oral presentation competition or gets accepted into that, they have the chance to win scholarships. And you can see first place in the oral presentation gets a $2,000 scholarship, and then $1,500 for second and $1,000 for third. And in addition to that, the top 3 oral presenters and the top 2 poster presenters are invited to compete at the National Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. And there they also get a chance to compete for more scholarship awards. And we had we had a student advance and win, I think, first place in a category this year, right, Susan? Yeah. So yeah, you can win a lot of scholarship awards, and you get a really good experience meeting people from around the country. The last 2 years it has been virtual, but I anticipate hopefully in 2022 it will be in person. It could be, I think 1 year it was in Boston, so really great opportunity for those students to travel and see another city as well. All right, I'm gonna skip our videos today. So that was event number 2. I'm moving on now to event number 3 that we help host here at UT, and that's the Tennessee Science Olympiad. So this one's a little different. It's an event where teams of 15 students that are led by a teacher or a coach, they call them, compete in events that really, they follow like board games or TV shows. And it's a lot like, you can think a track and field event where there's tons of events going on at one time, where your team spreads out and competes in all of those different events. That's how it works, but instead of track and field, it's STEM-related competitions. And in 2021, we held our regionals in February, and those were virtual competitions. And then here at UT, our job is to host the state competition. So teams enter the regional competitions, and then once they advance, we're sent their information, and then we help to host that competition here on campus. Now this year was virtual, but in past years, it's on campus all over the university. So you have 1,000+ people walking all over, going to all their events. It's a lot of fun. So 2022, we'll have a similar schedule. You'll see regionals that will happen in February, and then we'll host the tournament at UT in late April, most likely. And this year, I expect the regionals to be held traditionally like they normally are at about 10 different locations across Tennessee. So you should be able to find one that's fairly close to your school or to your region. Okay, so how does this work? There's 2 divisions in Science Olympiad. There is a Division B, and that's middle school. And then there's a Division C, which is high school. So this is for middle schoolers or high schoolers from anywhere in Tennessee. So I think this applies to anybody who's here today. There's teams of 15 students, which are led by a coach. And they compete in February for the regionals. And the winning regional teams are invited to compete at state competition at UT. And then the winning team in both Division B and C, so we send 1 middle school and 1 high school team to the National Science Olympiad competition, and that's also in mid-May usually. And it's another fun way. If you win, you get to travel. It was supposed to be in Arizona this year, but was also virtual. So Science Olympiad, by the numbers, there's 10 regional tournaments across Tennessee. There's also invitationals, like kind of like an exhibition tournament you can enter as well, that are hosted across the state and the country too. A lot of virtual tournaments are happening now that help you practice and prepare for the events. And I just wanted to point out in green on the right over there, it's about 1 in every 4 STEM jobs are women. But if you look at Science Olympiad numbers, about 50% of the competitors are female. So I know Science Olympiad prides itself in trying to add to that pipeline for women in STEM. All right, awards. So the top 6 individuals in each event. So there's usually about 20, I think 3 events each year. This year we only hosted 18, but every single event we had the top 6 winners got to take home a medal. And then the top 6 teams overall took home trophies. And then again, the Division B and Division C winning teams overall were sent on to the national competition. All right, so if you're a teacher and you're interested in this and you don't really know how to get started, or maybe you have done Science Olympiad before and you're wondering, well, there's new events this year, like what are they going to look like? We do a coaches workshop typically. We were unable to host one last year. We weren't able to put that together, but usually every fall there's a coaches workshop hosted somewhere across the state where we bring in some of our event coordinators who talk about a few of the events, and some past teachers who've done have had a team and can kind of tell you what it takes to put it all together and coach them and prepare you for getting your team of 15 students together. So keep that in mind. October roughly is when we'd look to host something like that. Okay, that is event 3 out of 4. So I'll move on to number 4 in just a moment, but I'll pause just for a minute, see if there's any other questions.
No questions right now.
All right. Okay, so I call this kind of our flagship program, if you will, for pre-college programs. It's the Governor's School for the Sciences and Engineering, which is hosted here at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And it's one of many governor's schools hosted across the state. You'll see all of them listed there on the screen, but we host the one in the bottom and in the center there. So this is really a STEM-related governor's school, whereas if you want to do the arts or something different, you would want to look at the other schools around the state. So I'll be talking about the Sciences and Engineering Governor's School today. Okay, so what is Governor's School? And I'll call it GSSE. So that's what we call it at UT. It's really like a college immersion program where you live on campus during the summer as a student. You go to classes taught by college faculty. So you're taking those college level courses and you really get to fully experience what it's going to be like to go to college. But you're not in college yet. So the students that apply to this program are rising juniors and rising seniors in high school. And any student from Tennessee, so any sort of tie to Tennessee, if you live there, you can apply for this program. This year's dates are, this one's actually coming up next week. We're starting the 2021 program. May 30th through June 26th this year. We will be hosting Governor's School in person on campus at UT. So we're kind of getting back into the real world, in-person world. So I see applause there from Susan. So that's usually when it's held, the month of June. But I'll talk a little bit about the timeline on how you apply and what that looks like. So applications for Governor's School usually open in the fall. So we expect in the fall of 2021 for the 2022 program application to open. This year it was, I think, about October or so was when that one opened. And like I said, rising high school, junior, and senior students can submit their applications. Historically, it's been a deadline of December 15th to submit, but the last 2 years, I believe now, it's been extended about a month. So I'm not sure where it will land this year. So plan on mid-December as being that deadline for the 2022 program. As far as how to apply, there's many different parts. The student does have to get a couple of teacher recommendations. The counselor is the one in the end that will need to submit that final application. So the students that are interested need to work with their counselors to do that. And then there are essays the student has to write as well, explaining why they want to attend, what's the subject they want to study when they get here. And then our selection committee will actually select the students that get full scholarship offers. And as you see there, that third bullet point, about 100 or so governor's school students will be sent acceptance letters for a full scholarship, and then roughly 30 to 50 governor's school students will be offered a partial scholarship position where they do have to pay a fee to attend. So in the end, you're going to have about 150 students. We have several more than that this year. It's a big program, but usually around 150 will attend. So academics, what do they study when they get to governor's school? So every student that attends, so that whole group of 150 will take 2 classes each morning. They're more generic STEM classes, STEM and society and STEM skills. Society is more of your applying, how does STEM work in the day-to-day world? How do you apply, what you're doing to the overall society? In fact, our philosophy department is teaching that class this year. And then STEM skills, you look on the bottom right picture there, it's more of like a hands-on building things or making apps kind of class in the morning. And moving on to the afternoon courses, they're at the bottom of the screen. Students will select one of those courses. So you won't take all of those, you just pick one. So there's a couple of biology courses, there's a chemistry course, a couple of engineering, and then math and physics as well. And in the end, really what the students get out of it, 3 big things. It's first off, you get college credit hours. So if you successfully complete those 3 classes, so your 2 morning classes and your afternoon course, you receive 5 credit hours that at UT can be used as an elective credit. And many universities will likely treat it similar, but it does vary per university. And I'd say really the 2 biggest things, though, you take away is, number one, you as a student learn what it's going to be like in college. So you spend a whole month on campus in a dorm, going to classes taught by college professors. So you kind of see, okay, what am I about to get into in a year or 2? And then you might learn, well, I love physics, or I hate physics, or I like chemistry, or I don't really know what I want to do, or maybe you find out you really like engineering and you want to get into that. So it kind of gives you a taste before you're in college, and it's a little too late to switch. So a lot of students always mention that when they leave governor's school. And then the last thing is friendships. These students, especially the ones that have been together in person in a dorm for a whole month, they talk about keeping in touch for years and years down the road. So that's one thing they'll always take away from this program. And that is it. There's a real long list of links there with different ways to check out all of our events. But really, the most important one is prep.utk.edu. Go to that link there, and you'll find all this information there. If you're looking to get in touch with us, you can reach out to us at prep@utk.edu. So you see our email address there, several social media sites if you're interested in checking that out. But really, I'll turn it over to you all and see if there's any questions I can address.
Yeah, there was another question about how to get information, but as you said, you can go to prep.utk.edu and sign up for our newsletter, which will have the information on all of the different programs and the important dates. And those about the coaches workshops and all of that. You can get access to that either on our website or through the newsletter.
All right, well, that's all we have. Susan, did you want to add anything else to?
There's another question. What
Another
general
question? Okay.
resources does a school need in order to start a science Olympiad team?
That's to be honest, I would love to put you in touch with a coach that has done it for many years, because if you want to start a team, it is a little bit difficult to get one started, but once you do, the kids really dive into it and love it. So Will, if you're interested, please send me an email, and I'd like to put you in touch with a coach because they'll know a little bit more than what I can tell you.
Mm-hmm. And our coaches, the coaches that are involved are very, very dedicated and into it. So we have a lot of people that we could put you in touch with that would love to help out.
And if you want to email Will, again, prep@utk.edu. All right. Any other thoughts, questions from the group? Susan, was there anything else you wanted to add to what we talked about?
No, I would encourage everyone to take advantage of the virtual science clubs. We are going to be looking, I know we had that question about if it's just for the SASEF for the East Tennessee region. And at this point, that's what it's focused on, but we are having discussions about partnering with other science fairs and trying to establish that sort of a program for some of the other regions. But we'd love to have you get involved in the one for the SASEF regions, if you're interested, so that we know that there is actually interest in expanding that club statewide. Otherwise, I think you covered it, Jason. Thank you so much for attending, everyone. And we hope that we'll see you soon participating in some of these programs.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I know virtual things are getting old, but we're glad you're here. And thanks to Luke, too, for being behind the scenes, for helping us out.